Hi, welcome to the Mohua Show. My name is Mohua Chinappa and I am an author, entrepreneur, and ex-housewife. This podcast is about everything from business to technology to arts to lifestyle, but done and spoken ईमानदारी से. Hi, we have Rozy Seth here today with us. Rozy is an AML professional with 16 years of comprehensive experience in financial services. She's a certified anti-money laundering specialist. She is an ICA Certified in regulatory and compliance and certified cryptocurrency investigator, having experience in handling various compliance processes. She's a single mother with 2 adorable twins, and she is a woman who's there in the anti-money laundering space. Welcome, Rozy, in today's episode.
Thank you so much, Mohua. It's my pleasure to be on your show today.
Rozy, you said you started work when you were 16. Do you really think you missed out on being the carefree young girl?
Yes, absolutely. There were many times, my friends used to bunk for a movie and I know I can't afford it. And there were many times, you want to buy your favorite stilettos or you want to buy that dress and even you want to just freak out. And I used to stay focused because I have to study. And I know how I was managing my fee when I was in first year of my college. And then there was some plan which used to be on my mind always, that how to come out of the misery I was going through. So yes, I missed a lot. And nowadays, I think when I look back, I feel whatever happened was important, or now I cherish those things, right? So now buying the stilettos give me happiness. Probably even at the 16, I could not get that.
You spoke about your parents, they had split, and the spillover in your growing up years into understanding yourself, your self confidence, and your relationship with your mother. Did it affect you?
Yes, it did. And I think I was always there for my mother. I was always a pillar for her. I was very young, but your situation sometimes make you feel more mature. So I was there to soak anything and everything she was going. I was the one who used to fight for her socially because we have been conditioned that if something happened in a marriage, a woman is always the one will be blamed. So I was that shield for her at that time, and I used to always say that you're doing great, it's all right, we'll sail it through. And I decided at very young age that I want to be financially independent, and that's the best way I'll be able to raise that bar and I'll be able to help her to come out of that the society norms.
So, is there any truth that mothers can create many gender biases in little girls, especially, if you're started at the age of 16 and you spoke about conditioning, which I think many of our listeners can relate to, because I think our mothers also teach us a lot of stuff, including me. I mean, she always told me that, you should not be seen on a boy's bike, even. So, that whole gender differentiation, it is for girls like us who grew in the 70s and the 80s, we came with huge biases. So, did you think any of the bias of her split had spilled over into your life?
Yes, I'll not blame her because she has lived in that society always. And I'm from Delhi, from a Punjabi family wherein, it has been assumed that being open minded, doing things the way you want to, but it was not in my case. So my father was always been overprotective about me, or was particular that I had very do's and don'ts. And my mom never allowed me to cross those do's and don'ts. Even probably, I'm not sure if she wanted to, but I have seen that my brother, who's younger to me, always getting those things which I want. I was always, I never get those privileges with which my brother always used to get. He always get that priority, that extra love, that extra affection. And I was told to girls are not supposed to be vocal about things. You can't be loud, talk softly. You're not supposed to talk to everybody. You have to think through before you talk. You have to dress in a certain manner. It's not because you're looking good or you're not looking good. It's all because what others are going to talk about. And especially when my father moved out, then there was unsaid, unwritten pressure. Probably it was on my mother. And I always used to, being asked not to dress in a certain way because what others will think. Log kya kahenge. Don't be late. What people will think about you. And what people will think about me, how I'm raising you. Wherein I was always a well disciplined and a girl who always followed the good things, always being a good girl.
तो ये लोग क्या कहेंगे वाली जो बात है, रोजी, मुझे ये पूछना है आपसे दैट हम सब इस चीज को सुन सुन के हमारे कान पक गए हैं, हाउ डिड यू फाइंड द करेज टू वॉक आउट ऑफ योर ओन मैरिज?
It was not easy. Okay. It was not planned that I'm stepping out. It's, it was just very random. Though I was sure that I want to step out of that marriage. So there were few friends. They were like, "Why are you going away? It's okay. Things can be worked out. It's all right." So I was sure that, that's something not meant for me. Something I am not the one who's gonna accept anything and everything on the face value. And maybe because 16, 17 years of my life, I have seen domestic violence at home. I have seen my mother suppressing her feeling. So I always used to say this to mom, I'm not going to adjust. So somewhere when I was adjusting, something came like very, very, it just struck in my head that I'm also doing the same which my mom did. My mom was not educated enough. She was not independent. She was never supported. But you are well educated. You're doing well for yourself and you're doing really well in your career. What's stopping you? Right? So that thing, that log kya kahenge, the rebel inside me just came out.
So, you also chose a very, very different sort of a career, you know, financial crime, right? And so, there are a lot of people right now who are our listeners. In fact, I was really taken aback when I heard about the specialization that you have. Would you tell our listeners a little bit about what does it take to be one? What does the job involve? And what does AML stand for?
While I was growing up, I was always fascinated with superheroes and I always wanted to be a Wonder Woman, and some fascination was there. So when I grow up, you realize that, superheroes doesn't exist in real, but they are like people like us. So I realized that knowledge is the power, and with the knowledge, you can be a superhero. So this journey for anti-money laundering AML stand for started with when I got the opportunity to work for one of the big four. I was not aware what it is and what I'm getting into. And then I realized that, the work which we were doing was not the same mundane work every day, not just the you're reviewing the same profiles again. So I identify that, this domain is very empowering. This domain wherein you have a power to maybe identify a transaction, though it's like finding a needle in the haystack, can help someone or can give clue to the financial intelligence unit about something which is about to happen or has happened. And terrorist financing, which has grown in last 2 decades, it has been a huge impact on society. So with this, I realize that there's a power, and these transaction which we are reviewing or the KYC profiles we were going through or a screening holds a power that you can find that needle, highlight it at the right time, and which you can, with this means, you can save the world from maybe another terrorist attack or someone doing a tax evasion for that matter.
What does it take to study this?
So there is no special education for the beginners. I would not recommend any certification. So if you are a commerce graduate, if you are a law graduate, non-litigation, if you want to pursue, we have done the MBA, or even if you're just simple graduate, you can get into this domain uh, very easily. If you have a good communication skills and written skills, that's must. If you have nudge to learn something new every day, for a person like me, I am someone who is very curious one and wants to learn something new every day. And if you can't make me do a mundane job every day, so that's a profile for you. Your good comm skills will take you in this domain.
I think good communication skills takes everybody in every domain forward.
Nowadays, yes.
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 Since time immemorial, it's just this that probably people are talking a lot more about it now. So, as an anti money laundering specialist, that's what AML stands for. Any interesting cases that you wish to discuss, the ones that were very hard to crack and you did it anyway?
It's new every day. There were times when, there are cases where we are very, very difficult. And I would like to talk about something which is over and above this. So I was working as a team lead with one of the organization, and I realized that the domain is so powerful, and the staff we were hiring, and the training was not they were not trained enough to handle those transactions, and they were just simply processing those cases. Like, you're looking into an individual account, you're looking into their social media profile to understand. For example, somebody has mentioned that the person is doctor, and these are the source of fund, and that's his source of income. So when we did a analysis, we identified that his social media profile doesn't talk about it, his qualification was not matching as per the doctor, and the entire setup where he was stating that he runs his clinic was in an industrial area, which doesn't sounds right. However, that team member simply could not understand what was happening because the person was not trained enough, not skilled enough. And I highlighted this to management that, hey, there is a need for people to be trained. Then they said, why don't you pick it up, right? So I worked on creating those PowerPoints, and I ensured that every time someone was entering into the team, they go through a detailed training. And this is where I think I picked it up. And I realized that this is something I feel more empowered doing, training people on educating them that what they are doing is different, and how much detail for eye for detail is required for doing this work. And I used to make them feel empowered during the training, and throughout make them understand that even if there's one day it's not your good day, it's fine. Don't rush to work. Don't do 10 cases if you can't that day. Maybe do 2 cases, but make sure your quality will take a priority over any metric, right? It's the work we do is very metric driven as well. And yeah, there's a turnaround time you have to meet, and sometimes you have a pressure to move those cases. But at the same time, the transactions we were working on, we were supposed to report it to the Financial Intelligence Unit of Australia, which is austrac. We ensure that we are meeting the timeline. At the same time, there's an eye for detail.
India is rated overall as moderate in high risk scoring, which is 26 out of 100 for financial crimes and money laundering, according to a global survey. So, what's your comment on this?
By Transparency International, it's an organization which rolls out the survey every year, and it's called the TICPI scores based on the corruption. And your corruption is also interlinked with your money laundering activities, because the strong the country is, strong the principles, rules, the regulator is, the regulatory body guides the bank and overall impacts the AML principles and policy across the region. So India is rated 26 because still there's so much we need to work upon. I was talking to someone the other day, and this girl works with a bank, and she works with the front office, and she is part of the compliance team, and she was working on the India regime. So she talked to me that we are understaffed, and this area, okay, is cost driven, that we don't generate revenue. So we never grab the attention until and unless there is some breach happen for the bank or for a country, right? So we never get that attention. So she was on the entire team was understaffed, and she has to rush through the work, wherein she herself was stating that the work I completed, I should have filed a suspicious activity report, wherein I could not pay that attention, and I have to pass that case. And later on, it comes out to be a money laundering case, and it was all over in the newspaper. So I think we really need to evolve ourselves. We really need to pay attention to this domain. Need to think through the compliance lens every time the new bank are going ahead with any new products or services, or on the country level, we need to have more strict regime. The corruption is also interrelated. I've mentioned the more stronger the country's corruption perception index is, the more strong the AML regime would be. So it flows from top to bottom. And the moment your upper layer is fixed and intact, that you cannot circumvent the system. Your KYC is very strong. If you don't have these documents, we are not opening your account, wherein we still go ahead and would create an exception, right? So eventually you will land up into a weak situation. And at the end, this money laundering, terrorist financing, this would take a toll, right? Because you're not paying attention to that.
Absolutely. Also coming back to some really crazy money laundering things that have really caught the limelight, in India. One was Harshad Mehta Of course, we have Vijay Malya and Nirav Modi, So they've committed the biggest scams and they fled India, okay? Vijay Malya tweeted saying, and the tweet gained a lot of popularity. It said that I've made repeated offers to pay 100% of the amount borrowed by KFA to the banks. So neither are the banks willing to take the money, and neither is the ED willing to release their attachment, which they did at the behest of the banks. What do you feel about it? Because, I mean, you're in this business of money laundering, and sometimes we are caught with the system and we don't know how to go about it.
So when this entire incidents, these are, the very common case studies when we deliver the training. These are part of our, our training agenda. These are the case examples we quote while training people. So the entire thing is about the bank people were also involved. Of course, the high above authorities were also involved. And again, the TI-CPI scores I was talking about, the corruption perception index, if you remove the corruption from the system, if you now imagine you are trying to bribe the bank manager or, the way above the people who are leading those bank, head of those banks, if they refuse to take a bribe, do you think we'll be able to circumvent the system? If they were a foot down, this is a non-secure loan and you've already not meeting the criteria, or we need to have certain more stronger agreements in place, this would have not happened or would have stopped to a certain extent. So yes, there were people who were involved. So if you remove the corruption from the system, to a certain extent, we'll be able to control these activities a lot. And we continue to criticize our government for not utilizing our tax money wisely. So if you look at the bigger picture and if you do a deep dive into finances and how money has been utilized, so all these scams, a big portion of the money has gone in paying the debts these guys have, the damage they have done to the economy, because everything was, these banks were backed up by the RBI. And then, of course, RBI has to fit into the shoe and fulfill those gap. And how they are going to make it? Of course, it's the taxpayer money which would have spent on the development of the country, making the infrastructure more strong, education system, or overall the development of the economy. Have gone to clearing the debt of these scams.
So, have you ever felt marginalized as a woman in this industry?
Not exactly, but yes, I think I'm blessed that I've been working with the organizations wherein there is always a fair chance. However, sometimes you do feel people judge you in terms of, will she be able, like being a single mother, and then will she be able to do this much work? And sometimes I feel like that I put in extra effort to prove my mettle, wherein I don't have to, right? I have to work extra mile to prove my potential. And sometimes, no matter how much you do, people will look at you and say that, okay, because there is, diversity, right? Or, she, people feel like sometimes, being a woman, we do get undue advantage. Wherein I have to put extra effort to tell them, no, I deserve it. I am worth it. And I worked extra hours as compared to anyone else because I have to prove something. So my question is, what am I proving? To whom am I proving? And why do I have to prove? Right? Is the work, and just be fair and just give a fair opportunity.
When you have cases that come up to you, is it mainly men who come in to complain for these sort of crimes, or is it women?
It's not, again, the percentage is higher for the men. And again, because they are in the power, we are still timid to come out of our shell. And we are not CEOs. We are not at those higher position. We are still not sure. So committing a crime would be, I would be happy doing it, that, wow, it's a female profile and she has done something. I might still say wow, right? But no, yes, more of the males, because they're already in power, they have that power to manipulate the system, do get into such activities, so the percentage is very low.
I think one question that really gets me going is this, that what would Rozy do differently, and what would Rozy tell herself at 16?
Be bindas, don't think too much. And the one best advice I would give it to myself, that don't roam in the loop of the society. I think somewhere I also follow that same loop of getting married, having kids, having that perfect life. 25, get married by 25, by 28 you should have kids, by that time you should have a car, you should have a house. No, everyone is following their own time zone, their own time cycle. One, don't rush and just be easy. Make your own timeline, whatever suits you. Right. So that's the best advice. Don't, no one, there is no tick mark everyone has to follow. I think I also followed being so rebel, being so outspoken, being so strong. But I think I followed that tick mark activity too. Never dim your shine just because it hurting others' eyes, right? Sun never shy away to shine, right? So why do you shy away for shining because it's in you? Never dim your light just to please others.
So before we end, like we said, log kya kahenge, us baat ka aap bilkul mat dhyan dijiye. And the quote that says, I have a limited amount of time left on this planet. I'm not gonna spend it being a watered down version of myself just so that people can like me. And listen to this podcast and hear somebody as amazing as Rozy talk about financial laundering and what it takes to be one. And also a single mother with 2 children and a special child. She is a woman of courage.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course on all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are The Mohua Show, where we talk ईमानदारी से.